Welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. And the way they go, who's got the first stop? That is a flying kick out from the line by Cinelli. Sitting on the group, look at Brogan. She's sat here, she's just staying out of trouble. She's not putting in too much effort. Really interesting to see. Well, let's see who's got that skill set, who's got this dialed. We've got a real mix of experience. Most of these riders, though, riding regularly for a long time now on the platform. The more you ride, the more you'll learn that. And watch the gradient. Top right-hand side, there's a grey box in the map view. Watch those colours. Who is going to take this on? Who's going to launch that first probing attack? Looks like Bjarhed the first to take up the pace. 5.5 watts per kilo, now 6 watts per kilo, now 6.3, 6.5. She's putting the pressure on. Bjarhed is a rider who's been caught napping here. I think she's got to respond here. Marlena's got to push. We know she's talented enough. We know she's got the skills to do it, but she's got to respond now. As we come in to the final few thousand meters, we are coming in with 3 riders. Brogan pulled back after an initial attack of the 3 leaders coming in. It looks like they're all back together. It's going to come down to these 2 riders now. Distance is coming down though between them as Marlene Bjarhed is on here. Bauer is coming, but coming up is the wall up to the finish. Here comes the line. It's going to be Bjarhed who takes it. Marlene Bjarhed takes it, and that's how much. So, welcome, MyWhoosh, to the prize money race at the end of July. We've had 4 amazing qualifying races on our run in. It's been my pleasure to put words to the action. My name is Matt Payne, joined by Emma Martin in the studios to see just who is going to take away the prize money final at the end of what is an amazing race here on MyWhoosh on Monday Club. And I think we are going to see some fantastic racing. Our men's race already very, very exciting, brilliant to watch. But we have, of course, our women's race, and this is very tough, of course, for all our categories. Welcome, Emma. Do you want to run us through the course that faces our women today?
Yeah, so welcome. Good to be with you, Matt, today. So today's course is 35k distance with a total climb of 720 meters. And as you can see, it's quite a rolling climb today, but with 2 major climbs. The first climb coming and starting within the first 2k, total 6.18k in distance with an elevation of 113 meters. And our final climb of the day is the big one, and that's a category 2 climb. That category 2 climb is 476 meters in height, 5.73k long, and with an average grading of 8.2%. But as you can see, there are much steeper segments there, and I'm expecting that to go well into double figures.
Well, that's going to be really interesting to see how they deal with this climb at the end because of those steep ramps and the steep climbs on there. And we've got some amazing teams who are going to be taking on this challenge here today. Our first category riders, the strongest teams out there. Our strong girls team have been very strong indeed. Spartan obstacles, though, with Van Heuling, Brogan, and Fura cannot be discounted along with Covado. Watch out for Lupa, new onto the scene, and really have been putting in some amazing performances as well. The last Colombianas, well, as the name would suggest, once we go on to the climb, going to be tough stuff. But the Toyota Cryo RDT squad, they have been riding strongly, and I really want to see how they go on because, of course, remember in their ranks they have people like Charlotte Colclough that we know well as an esports rider. Now on category 2. Great riding from these teams. Got to watch out, though, for the Tri-Women squad. They're going to be up against the Team RT, and I think realistically, between themselves and Team Fitness 10, they are the teams who could be in with our team win. But we can't discount the competition in that third category as well, behind our second category riders, because our third category riders are equally racing for prize money, racing to be up there, Emma. And I think these Category 3 riders really do sort of amplify what we're looking for, that jumping on and really having a go. And the Climbers girls, Team RT ladies, Cycle Hub, and of course Slam Bike Shot Team 2 are going to be competitive. Great racing in there.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Matt, all of these riders are competitive in their own category. And we're going to see some fierce racing today from our Category 3 riders, our Category 2 riders, as well as our Category 1 riders.
And for me, that is going to be the best thing about watching today. We're going to see who's going to take away the prize money. And of course, the racing on here on MyWhoosh are going to be over that really tough course today, which is just right as we've got a final. Now the clock is ticking our riders in to those last moments. We're on 40 seconds to race start at the moment and ticking down. We're in with Ursula Bardeskaya. Bardeskaya has been very, very strong all race season long, and riding now for the Toyota Cryo RDT squad, signed up. This could be where we see her with the strength behind her to push on. Now into the last 15 seconds, it's going to be key to get off this line fast. Riders are going to be ramping up, aren't they, Emma?
They are, but not quite yet. You don't want to burn your matches too long before the start, but pretty much with 5 seconds to go, that's when I'd be starting to put some power down.
So here we go into this takeoff point, and it's away we go. And somebody's got an absolute flyer there. I think we're going to see a real interesting mix of riders out on the course now, because we have got these riders up and away. And at the moment, it certainly looks to me like the second and third category riders have been watching this course. They were racing it last week. Of course, they know that if they get in this pack early, they can sit in the draft and follow this along. Now, last week, we're on the same course. So the riders who rode qualifier number 4 at an advantage here, because they will know what is coming up, what they are faced with, and what they are going to find out on the course. So key for me, making sure they have this dial, making sure they know exactly where they are heading, and of course, getting into this big pack that has swept away at the start. And it looks like it's about 28, 30 riders strong at the moment, this leading group. It's essentially relatively flat to start off with, but we hit that climb quite early, remember. We hit that at 1.6k in, and that means that we're halfway to the base of the climb already. And you can just see we're still finding second category riders mixed in with the first. The third category is maybe just starting to feel the pressure, because they're going to be right over their limit, aren't they, to try and stay with our leading riders.
Yeah, but there's a real benefit to that draft, Matt, in terms of being in with that front group and really trying to take the protection from it.
So we are seeing Faye Faber up on the front with Catherine Fuhr just moving over the top into that lead. Interesting to see that we've got Angie Parrott in here, Elenia Cinelli as well in second category riders. But in first category riders, we've got Faber Cavedo as well as Gonzalez right up at the front. Remember, Faber riding for that strong girls squad for the Spartan obstacles, as is Cavedo. So they are looking now. They're going to be checking that they've got their teammates in there. Jojo Bauer definitely in the leading mix here at the moment, and we're going to see if Jojo, who's riding for the Las Colombianas team, can take this away. She's not had the strongest of support, but will she have that today? Because we've got Gonzalez right up in the mix as well. And Bardeskaya has made the junction, so that Toyota Cryo RDT squad clearly looking to take away some prize money here today. So in with Cavedo, 1.7k in, and we're starting onto the base of the climb here. It basically, one quick step, 2-step, then we are into the big ramp, and at 2k we start the first of our segments. Emma, just explain those segments again, what their purpose is.
Yeah, so today's 35 course has 7 segments over, which are 7 timed segments for us to take a look at the racing and see what's going on. The first 5 segments today are 1k in distance, and we can see there on the course in front of us on the screen. The segments number 6 and segments number 7 are both 5k, so a lot longer. And we'll see some of those segments over climbing, we'll see some of those segments over descents and rolling terrain. And then that final segment, segment number 7, 5k in length, finishes 1.2k before the finish line.
And those last 1.2K are tough stuff as well, as we've seen in the men's race. Make sure you jump on and subscribe on YouTube to the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Get notified when we go live. Not just, of course, with our racing, but also with our great videos with Jeff explaining how to jump on, how to personalize your avatar to give it something that you can identify your rider with. Now, interestingly, here you can see the difference. Faye Faber, no hat on, white hair. They've got Jojo Bauer just behind her. She's got the red hair with a cap on there in white, but riders changing their socks, their hats, their hairstyle. Just literally to give them some way of identifying themselves in the pack, and knowing where you are is key, isn't it?
It is, and being able to really pick yourself out of the pack quickly when you're riding in that pack, so that you know where you are and you know where your position is amongst everybody else.
And as we see our riders coming into the end of this segment, we're going to get the first of our splits coming through. So this will give us a good indication of not just how fast people are going, but also how hard they're working. Those stats coming up on the MyWhoosh website and up on your screen now. So Bauer, the fastest through there, but some really interesting things to pick out from that, Emma.
Yeah, so Jojo Bauer going through there for Las Colombianas in first place in 1 minute and 36 seconds. Catherine Fuhr coming through for Spartan Obstacles in second, followed by a teammate, Gemma Brogan from Spartan Obstacles as well in third. And the times of that front group are quite well packed, and you can see there how many riders are coming through within a second of each other. We've got, I'm just counting through the list here, I'm looking for about 23 riders going through that segment within a second of each other.
Well, that is incredible, isn't it? Just how tightly packed they are. And as we look down there, Spartan Obstacles well represented, 3 team riders to count, but lots of teams packing out that big group of 23 riders. Now, Jojo Bauer, Faye Faber, Ursula Bardeskaya, Elizabeth Van Heuling on here. Good to see Van Heuling back in. And we do see some of our riders really peaking in for the prize money finals, really targeting those races. And Van Heuling has been a repeat winner. She's been out there, really has had this absolutely nailed, and it's been great to watch her in action. And she's really been one of those riders who, when it is on a climb, can really pull it out, but she's got to get into that climb. But of course, riders' form dips, it weighs, it becomes stronger. At the moment, the riders need to be strong. They're on that climb. They're currently at 3.9K at the moment. Remember, this climb in total starts at 1.6 and goes all the way to 7.7K. So they're midway through, and that gradient just rises and levels, and then it will level off over the top. The pressure being put on the very front of the race starting to distance. You can see a predominance of green jerseys on the left of your screen, the very front of the race on the right of your screen, mostly yellow jerseys, and that is about the pace that's not only just being set, but the gradient that is being applied, and that applies right the way through the turbo trainer as well, because that grips on. Now you can see here on the left of your screen, it's really a graphic description. The yellow jersey at the front really pushing. We've just seen maybe a little bit of an easing, because we are seeing some of our riders in the second category just coming on to the back here. Angie Parra, Novelin Kokonen going on to the group here. So at the back of this group, it's almost as critical as the front of the group. Who is under pressure? Who is riding strongly? Who's able to stay in there? Who is in a position that if a gap goes, they are not going to get caught out? Because if a gap does open between the front and the back of the group, if you're in the back section, you've got to push on. We're just riding in with Kokonen on the left-hand side of your screen, a rider on a big climb with a gradual gradient, something like the Yebel Hafit that we use on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. She is a rider who could be right up there. We've seen her right in the top 2. However, this is a very different climb because of the steps. But you've got to get to that climb first, and you've got to get in the group, and the strong riders should be able to stay in the group, not waste too much energy. You can see on the screens the watt numbers flickering from green to black. If they're in black, they're not getting a draft. If they're in green, they're in hiding, they're saving energy, and that is all going to be key a little bit later on. So at the moment, Faye Faber leading this race out. Faber, one of our regular riders on MyWhoosh. It's great to see our regular riders back week in, week out. Faye Faber riding for that strong girl squad with Fiona Schroeder, Lisa Brommel, Dana Dega Mashadi, and Lydia Adeline, all her teammates. Up against Brogan, Fua, Van Heuling, and Cavedo for the Spartan obstacles, Lytton, Francis, and Mendoza for Lupa, Dallimore, Barragan, Bauer, Giraldo, and Gonzalez Rua in the squad of Las Colombianas. And in category 1, Biohead, Bardoskaya, Dijkstra, Sanchez, and Moreno also in the mix. But watch out for these as they come in and through. We're going to see who is absolutely flying at the moment and who is going to be struggling. We've just come through that 5.5k marker, and that means we're now into our segment. And this segment actually starts partway up the climb, but I think, Emma, does it end a little bit further round?
Yeah, it does indeed. So what you'll see is this segment 1k, but actually it will start off going uphill and pretty much will get to the top of the climb and it should flatten off.
Oh, just at 2.6% as the gradient starts to bite. The power starts to go up. We're seeing 4.1, 4.3, 4.5 watts per kilo. Jojo Bauer, the rider that we're following, regular winner on the MyWhoosh race scene, a rider that we know can take victory. Got a great kick in for the finish. She's got to get that timing right on this course, though, as Faye Faber is doing a sterling job here. She really is sitting and setting her tempo. That heart rate, 170 beats per minute, 66 revs per minute. So sat at a pace I think she's comfortable at, rather than necessarily responding to a pace that somebody else is setting. So here we are on MyWhoosh on our prize money final at the end of the month, and it certainly looks to be pretty smooth at the moment. Let's see who is going on. So let's see just how far they are going to get. It's looking good at the moment. So in towards the end of the segment, and I'm going to let Emma bring our riders in and across. I can't imagine they're all that far from that blue arch.
No, so we should be seeing them cross that blue arch in about 100 metres. In fact, look in there, you can see that in front of them as they're about to come through that. And Faye Faber is going to lead them under first.
So here we go, underneath they go, and the results up on screen. Emma, can you take us through those?
Yep, so while Faye Faber may indeed have led us through in the lead, she's not the fastest woman through the segment. And that goes to Cocoan, and actually from the Team RT Cycle Zone Ladies 1 in a 1:54 this time round, followed by Leslie Ann Cordera from Slalom Bike Shop Team 1, Alessia Antico from Tri Women, Angie Parra from Strong Women, Sinelli from Tri Women, Alero Oliveri from Tri Women. So 3 from the front team there going in through from Tri Women. Strong performance through that segment.
Very strong performance, and you can just see those times on the way through very, very close. And that group working hard at the moment to stay with Faber. So Faye Faber working well at the moment, looking pretty smooth, and keeping this group together as they go up. It is really interesting to see just how smooth they are going. And I think we are seeing Faber here with a very definite game plan of going out and going at this pretty hard, I think, and really setting a pace that maybe is going to get rid of some of the rest of those riders. And that is an interesting tactic at this stage in the game. So we're going to see if that continues to be the case here as they continue out and around the circuit. And you can just see left-hand side of your screen, our third category riders in battle, but the front of the race still very, very close. And that leading group, still with lots of riders in the second category in the mix.
There are, and you can see them on the right-hand side of your screen. So just a reminder for those of you who haven't joined us before, our first category riders are in the yellow jerseys, our second category riders are in the green jerseys, and our third category riders are in the blue jerseys. And we've got a real mix in that front group, as you can see, across both those screens. While the very front of that peloton in currently of that group number 1 on the road are in yellow, there's a big contingent of green jerseys mixed in there as well.
Okay, so our riders are away and moving smoothly. The question will be who is going to take victory. It's going to be really interesting as they move onwards. Our riders here on MyWhoosh on the Sunday Race Club. and we're going to watch them as they make their way up through the straight. And Emma, just give us a quick recap. Where are we in terms of the course overall? We're currently at 8K for our race lead of the group all together, but we've still got plenty of course to go.
Yeah, we have indeed, Matt. So currently you'll see from the box on the top of the right-hand screen, we are dropping down that first climb. In fact, their course map is now in front of you, and we are on that descent from that main climb before we move into what is really quite some rolling terrain up until we get to the 29.6K segment of the real start at the bottom of that climb. And that final climb, let's just remind you, is 5.7K in distance. It's 476 meters of climbing, and it's averaging over 8%.
And that is tough stuff. And you can just see as these groups continue onwards, we are getting a really good pace from them. The speed at 37 kph, so 37 kph as they go in and along, and that is some speed. The riders moving through the pack at about 40 kilometers per hour, 37 kph to 35 on the front at the moment, and that's reflected dependent on the effort they're putting in as well as the gradient they're climbing, but still lots of course to go out.
There is, and this is really reminiscent of last week's racing, Matt, if you remember, because there was a really big group of around 20 riders, mixed category 1 and category 2, until we got to about 20k, and then the category 1 riders lit that paper and really made a big fast race for the last 15.
Well, really interesting. You should say that we're currently at 9K. That means in theory we've got just about 11K before that goes, if it goes at the same point. But the riders in there, riders like Angie Parra, they're getting a good head start on the rest of the group. If they can stay in there in their green jerseys, they are opening the gap on the rest of them. But they've got to sit in that bunch. Let's see Caldera in the mix there as well. But this mix of riders at the head of the racing. And you can see here, we're in with Angie Parra, currently sat in there 85 revs per minute, hiding in that group, making sure she gets plenty of draft, but still a lot of riders in category 2 able to stay with category 1. And this is partly because it's just, as you said, not about pure power. It is about the ability to hide. It's about the ability to stay clear and out of trouble and to actually save that energy. And some riders will be able to rest at this pace, won't they, in the bunch?
Oh, yes, and I think you can really see that looking at the heart rates. I mean, I've just been looking at Faye Faber's heart rate, and it's currently 11 beats per minute slower than it was earlier in the race. So this is a real recovery period for some of these riders. And, you know, it's not always the person who has the highest watts per kilo average in a race that wins the race. Often the skill is to have the lower watts per kilo average and to be at the front. And as you can see there, look at that. Jojo Bauer is coming through segment 3, doing exactly what I've just said, 2.9 watts per kilo compared to 3.1 and 3.2 behind her, because that's about taking the draft and actually knowing the technique of riding the terrain as well, and using momentum, using the draft, and not exerting as much energy as your competitors. So through that segment 3, we're seeing Jojo Bauer in first place with the fastest time of 1 minute 21, followed by Kokkonen from the Team RT Cycle Zone Ladies 1 in second place, Faye Faber from Strong Girls in third, and Tico from Tri Women, followed by her teammate Olivero from Tri Women, again in fifth place, and then Strong Women's second rider, rounding out sixth place, Jenny Sanchez.
Well, great to see that the riders are coming through. Interesting. Just looking down there, Lytton from the Alupa squad, low heart rate, low effort, and I think working well in there, keeping out of the window and low watts per kilo. So that's a really good sign that the riders are experienced. Riding on the platform is key. Make sure you download it onto your PC, download the app, and make sure that you jump on. Come and join us on MyWhoosh at the platform. Great for getting out there, getting the rides in. Don't forget, of course, you can get the training sessions out there. There's a mass of training programs written by world-class coaches, and really interesting to see that the guys who write the training programs actually going on an altitude camp with the UAE squad at the moment. Well, I wonder how many of our riders have been taking that in. We'd great to see our third category riders on the way in and through. And I think this is going to be our leading third category riders actually on the course. Jasper de Colli Illustri, we've got in there. We've got Galliano, we've got Clarisso, we've got a real mix. It looks like Giraldo, the rider that we're sitting on at the moment. Isabel riding well at the moment, 158 beats per minute. Nice pedal cadence. So 94, 95. That's nice smooth. That allows you to respond. If somebody puts the pressure on, you can really go.
You can, and I think we're seeing that now. In fact, our Category 3 riders are pushing on for that segment banner as we speak, and they are moving through, and really the back of that group now is pushing on to come back up towards them, to stay in that group and to really make that Category 3 race really active. That's fantastic to see.
Well, I'm just taking a little look across these screen. Category 1 and Category 2. I'm looking at that pace, 35 kilometers an hour. I think there's a lot of careful riding here. I think there's some really careful tactical riding as well. I think people are making sure they don't expend too much energy too soon. And that is critical on this race, isn't it? It's about hiding away. We've just spoken earlier on about the hiding and staying out of the way. The savings are phenomenal. I've been lucky enough to sit in big bunches of several hundred riders out and racing. And when you're in the middle of those big packs, you literally put next to no effort in. You're just almost blown along by the draft. And that's why we see the team cars. If you've watched any of the individual time trials in the big tours, you will see the team cars have rack after rack after rack of bikes on the roof. And that is because they create a bow wave that pushes along. And it's only fractions of a second that it'll save, but it does make a big, big difference. And that's why this pack, if you can stay in it, it's so critical to be there. The gaps have opened up behind. And realistically, the winner of our first and second cap is going to come from this group.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Matt, looking through that segment 3 as we move into segment 4, it really is a team race, and you can't forget how much these riders are playing the team game as well, and ensuring they're looking after their teammates and making sure the teammates are sat in the draft and taking the recovery, because you don't know who's strong today and you don't know who's on form. And this isn't just an individual race, it's a team race too.
It is indeed, and I think that team competition is going to be really interesting to watch. I mean, Las Colombianas have been winning in that team competition. Strong Girls are winning the team competition, but I wouldn't put it past the Spartan Obstacles to take that away. Cafedo, Van Heulen, Brogan Fua, all very, very strong riders in first category. In the second category competition, who to choose? Tri-Zone women have always been in the top 3 when they've ridden, but you couldn't discount Team RT Cycles, and I wouldn't discount Team Fitness 10. And of course, strong women with Sanchez, Parras, and Sanchez. Very, very strong riders who, again, are more than capable of being up in the top 3. So I think those competitions are wide open. In the category 3 racing, well, Team RT ladies and the Cycle Hub are the teams on form, but will that be the case as we come out the other side? The distance currently 13.3 kilometers covered. We have our riders at the moment, our leading group of riders comprising of first and second category riders, just maybe starting to feel the pressure as Faye Faber winds it up to 4 watts per kilo coming into the end of this section. They are currently at 13.5k covered. And that does mean that we are going to see maybe the pressure applied enough to detach riders off the back of the group. Emma, results from that splits there.
Yeah, so that was segment 4, the fourth of our 1K segments, and pretty much uphill and rolling that segment. So a time of 1:41 from Gonzalez Rua from Las Colombianas in first place, going through the fastest of that segment, though not leading across the line. Again, Van Houweling from Spartan Obstacles in second, Fur from Spartan Obstacles in third. So again, strong team packing. Faye Faber, who was over the line first, comes through in the 4th fastest time. And Marlena Barreid from Toyota Cryo RDT in 5th.
Well, Marlena, a rider who is very, very strong. That Cryo squad, Bardaskai, Dijkstra, Bjarhead, got Sanchez and Moreno. I think they could be the riders who are going to come in here. They've not got form in terms of the team competition, but when we mention names like Bardaskai, like Dijkstra, like Bjarhead, we know they are riders who have lit up the racing. We know they're riders who can take the win. The question will be, can they do it today? And can they ride strongly enough to deter the teams, people like Spartan Obstacles, who have a lot of experience. They've been racing race after race after race. If you want to watch them and check out the action of our previous races, make sure you jump onto the YouTube channel, tick that subscribe button, and get notified when we go live. Don't forget, of course, that you can go on to social media, catch up with all the news as it happens. On Instagram, it's MyWhoosh, as it is on Facebook, and it's my_whoosh on Twitter. Now, as this race continues onwards, you can see the right-hand side, our race leaders. Faber again goes up on to the front. Behind, though, that group is whittling down, and I think we're around about 17, 18 riders. Is that right, Emma?
Yeah, and I think tell through that segment 4, but also what we're seeing on our screen here is that the front of that group have, not hugely, but they've slightly squeezed on the pedals a little bit, and they've lifted the pace to high 3.7, 3.8 through to 4, 4.2 watts per kilo. And that's just starting to stretch that group, and it's nowhere near packed as tightly as it was earlier.
It isn't, and that is a sign, isn't it? If it's one long, very thin line, it means everybody's absolutely on the rivet and they're all starting to struggle. However, now we've seen a big group, maybe 3 or 4 riders across, so they're not using all of the road. And certainly at the front, you can just see the pressure starts to come on. You see a jilling behind, and now we start to see it thinning behind our leaders. The group starts to string out. We've gone from a flat and downhill section, and we're currently at 0.9% here at 15k into the and the drag starts to take its toll. And 0.9%, 0.8, it doesn't sound a great deal, but remember, all of these riders having to ride with a fixed turbo trainer resistance level, and that does make a difference. And it's all part of keeping the racing fair and making sure that we get great and accurate results.
Yeah, and like you say, whilst this gradient isn't really high at the moment, it's enough to allow the front of the group to push on and to start to see that riders at the back really have to work a lot harder if they want to stay with them. And that's a really key tactical point. You know, we're 15.6k into this race now, and particularly for those Cat 2 riders, the longer that they can stay in with these Category 1 riders, the more draft they can take, and hopefully the better positions they will find themselves in that Category 2 race.
And that, for me, really does tell, doesn't it? And we are looking at these riders that they have to qualify. It's not just automatic entry in, and our riders have to go through what is a pretty stringent verification process. But that's one of the things where we have just, of course, our segments that we're running into now, but of course, the prize money final. There's big money at stake. So all of our riders having to verify their ride, making sure that it's accurate. Just give us an idea of what the riders have to do, Emma.
Yeah, so it's not just about entering the race and riding, it's about qualifying. And to qualify, you need to ride 2 out of the 4 qualification races that have been on this, but you need to have your results verified. So not just riding, but there's a number of processes you need to go through to get a verified result. You need to have a dual recording of your power. And that dual recording is mandatory for all riders wanting to qualify, and it needs to be submitted immediately after the qualification race. Failing to submit the dual recording means it's not a verified result. Your submission of the dual recording needs to be in an original fit file, not in any other format. And that dual recording must include an alternative source of power that is not from your trainer. So a power crank or some power pedals, along with your heart rate and cadence. There is one final point to remember, and that's that we would strongly recommend that you delete all devices from the head unit that you are recording your dual recording from, so that it doesn't pair accidentally with your trainer, because it's got to come from a different source, and that often catches riders out.
And that is key, isn't it? Because it can corrupt the data that's coming through. So having it in a fit file, having an uncorrupted data, keeping it as smooth as you can. So our riders with the turbo trainers producing the key numbers we're seeing on the screen. So for our rider, we're watching Jojo Bauer, the 202 watts, the heart rate, the pedal cadence coming from there. That's the main source of recording. The second source of recording coming from outside. But the numbers you see on your screen, they are coming from that primary source at the moment. So currently, for the fastest through there, Emma, but we are seeing some big sections.
We are, and it's again looking at the results there, really interesting in the team competition. But as you mentioned, Fur coming through in 1:41 that time round, with Brogan in second, Francis in third, Bauer in fourth, Parrott in fifth, Sanchez in sixth, Quivado in seventh, Lytton in eighth, Faber in ninth, and Van Houweling in 10th.
And great to see just how those team standings are in there. We are going to have a real battle for that team competition. And I think that is going to be really interesting to watch as that unfolds as we go up. So at the moment here on MyWhoosh, 17.7K covered. We are now over half race distance in our 35-kilometer race here on our prize money final coming out to you live. And you can see at the moment, this race really has been one where we've seen a group of riders put a pack together and go down the road from the start. This has distanced riders out behind rather than having people necessarily attacking on the front. And that war of attrition, that damage that's being done, has shed rider after rider. But the leading group is still a mix of first and second category riders. The first category riders in that yellow jersey, the second category in the green. No third category riders making the cut, as we would expect, because of course the categories are split between to give us great racing. Where whatever level you're at, whether you're a third, a second, or a first category rider, there's always going to be somebody to race against. At the moment, though, because this is relatively flat in terms of course, and we saw this earlier on in the men's race as well, the groups are able to stay together quite well for time, and that is because you're hiding out of the wind, you're staying at the back of the group, and this group looking like they are working very, very well indeed. Now, if like us, you've done your homework, you've been watching all the feeds, you've been watching all the racing, you'll know when we get into the climbs, this is not going to be the case. Once we hit the final climb, once we hit any of the steeper sections, the category one riders, the stronger riders on these climbs, those with explosive power will be able to break away, and it would depend on the profile and again how these riders are riding. We've got quite a lot of riders out and around the world who are just on their comeback from things like COVID and been lucky enough to be watching the Commonwealth Games and the swimming, and in fact talking about people's recovery swimming from having COVID and not being able to do a race after race, swim after swim. It's the same when you're riding the bike. Your recovery maybe isn't quite what it was. And that recovery time, it does take time, doesn't it, Emma?
It does indeed. And just one of the things for riders to plan and watch in their racing and training. But it's really interesting here. We're coming up to the 19.1K of this 35K race, and this group are still all together. And I wouldn't want to be all together for much longer if I was in this race. And I think we might see some really interesting team tactics as to how this pack gets split in not too far up the road.
Well, Catherine Furr just coming through at 3.7 watts per kilo there. Thought she'd been listening for a moment. It was going off on the attack at the moment. You said, but I suspect we're going to start to see it wind a little bit. What you certainly wouldn't want to do is tow in a climber into the finish. So if you're a stronger rider, if you're a sprintier rider, if you've got power, you're going to be looking to put that power, that pace down, maybe put the climbers in trouble, maybe catch them out at the back of the bunch when a gap opens up between maybe some of our second and our first category riders. Let the gap open and really drive home the wedge and push on at the front of the race. Try and catch those climbers out, because if you do take a climber into that final climb, they are going to be able to kick and respond as you go up that climb. You're not going to find it easy sitting at a pace and dropping the riders. And if you look at our helicopter shot, looking down on our riders at the moment, Van Heuweling tucked in nicely, but we're looking down, seeing riders just coming up back onto the back of the bunch. Speed is currently about 35k at PH at the moment. That is still a big pack to take to the finish, and this is a gamble. But go too early, blow your socks off, and you are in trouble.
Yeah, we've got probably nearly 20 riders still in that group. Admittedly, some of them are yo-yoing back and forward off the front, but they're still there, and that is a really big group at 20k.
So 20k covered. We have just under 15k to go. The groups at the moment are working their way in towards that final climb. A quick reminder for you of where we're at. We are currently at that 20k marker. Let's see how it moves onwards from there. It is going to get really interesting. So just pushing up here. So just a quick question on YouTube. We have been asked, are there prizes for the segment? The answer is no, there's not. There's no prizes for each individual segment. So, a message from Simon Acker there. Simon, thank you for watching. And if you do have questions, don't forget to send them in onto the YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can, of course, get hold of Emma or myself on social media. You can message us on there, or of course live on the YouTube channel. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Segments give us split times. They give us a good window, a snapshot that particular distance in the race, but there's no prize. It's not like a preem in a race. Emma and I are lucky enough to be on the microphone at the final round of the National Crit Series in Newark in the, and that was on Friday night, and about I think it's less than 48 hours ago. It feels like about a lifetime, and no preems in there, because when we get into the final, it's not about making the racing exciting. It's about seeing who is the best rider, and that is key. So whilst in some of the earlier races in that season in the series that had prees, nothing as you move into the last races, and that is key. And that's what we're looking for here. We are looking for the best riders in each of our categories, and that is key. So let's see who's going to take this at the moment. Interesting to watch our riders behind in the third category racing. They are looking pretty good here, and the pace is pretty hot. I've got to say, they might be a little bit further behind in distance, about 5k back, but they're moving quickly out there, and I think our leading riders, I think it's going to be a really a big group in there. They've got some second category riders in there, but let's see who's in there.
Yeah, there's 3 second category riders in there, but that group leading the category 3 race in the blue jerseys is currently 9 riders.
So 9 riders battling it out. Don't forget all of these results on MyWhoosh.com on the results. At the moment, they're live. They'll move from live to unofficial, and then they will move from unofficial to official when they are verified. Now, Elodie Reynard in here. Elodie has been a rider week after week, month after month. She's in the mix with our first category riders. She's a really strong rider, and really always easy to identify. She always makes sure she's got a really different mix of kit on there to the other riders, which is really important. But Elodie Reynard looking very strong. The question is, Para, Reynard, riders like Chinelli, Carmona, Sanchez, they're all in the mix with our first category riders. And at the moment, this is playing into the hands of the climbers. We're at 22 kilometers now, and this is it's a bit of a game of chicken here. It's a bit of brinkmanship, isn't it, Emma? They're just taking it steady, and it's probably a good job we don't have a camera rolling in the studio, because there's a look of incredulity on Emma's face here.
This is like the slowest segment of the front packer riding at the moment. We've seen it down to 2 watts per kilo, 2.1 watts per kilo. Heart rates are dropping like stones in that front pack, as they almost look like they could be cuddling each other. They're riding so close together. I think they're taking a rest here, a bit of a pause, a bit of a rest. And at 22.3k into the 35k race, they're really leaving themselves a very, very fast and hard final climb to decide this race.
So maybe time where they're going to be refueling, putting on board some extra energy, rehydrating if they're lost any fluids. If it could well be that they went really hard early on and then on their limit and then having to refuel. I think this is more about a mental race at the moment, as it is a physical race for our top flight riders. But we've got to remember, in this group will be riders who are absolutely blowing chunks. They're going to be right on the limit. They're going to look like they're turning themselves inside out in their pain caves at home, whether they're indoors sheltering from the heat because it's warm, or whether they are somewhere where it's cold, wet, and miserable. And mentioning no name, Sheffield, because at the moment, it really does look to me like this group of riders, they are at the moment first category riders on the front. They're going to be comfy. Secondary riders, we've got a lot in there, and there is no way that they are all going to be taking it easy. But I have to say, some of the names that we are not seeing on the very, very front, Elizabeth Van Heuling. Van Heuling is hovering. Barda Skyer doing the same. Now, if you go out on a club run, on a ride, on a chain gang, or you're racing, there's always somebody who sits and hides and waits and waits and waits and waits and waits, and then pops out and gets the sprint, gets the club sign, gets the town sign, just at the end. Same on MyWhoosh. Unfortunately, on MyWhoosh, it's never me. I can do it in real life. I can't do it on the virtual platforms. Higher than sprint. But you look at these riders, the smart money is sitting there, not expending too much energy here. And I think that maybe ice cream time on the way through for them, because this pace at the moment, 30 kph, 20 miles an hour. Now, if you go out and ride on a really tough course, going to be really interesting. But let's see if that continues onwards.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, it's I'm sitting here wondering what on earth those teams are saying to each other on Discord. Wait, no, let's hang in. When are we going to go? Because really, really interesting to see what those teams are talking to each other about. Because not just about what you're doing individually, but it's about what your teammates are doing as well, and what your plan is on the road, and whether you're executing it as you wanted.
Well, and again, that is key, that communication. We had a question about is there prizes for the segments? And the answer is no. But there is prizes that the teams take as well as our individual riders. And it's no good battering off the front, destroying your team, putting them in trouble. You want to get 3 riders up there. I mean, you mentioned Discord. Discord is...
So Discord is an app that you can use and is used a lot amongst the esport pelotons very, very regularly, where you open it up, you have a team channel, and you are listening to your teammates and being able to talk to them whilst you're on the MyWhoosh platform racing.
And I bet that is sometimes a very entertaining method of intercom, because I can't imagine that it's generally always cool, calm, and collected, particularly when you're getting into the sharp end of the racing.
Not at all, but it's good to know that your teammates are suffering as hard as you are, because you can hear them.
Well, we'll see if these teams are talking and whether they get these tactics right as they come in and through to our finish. Currently approaching the 25-kilometer marker, and that will be about 5k from the finish. So at the moment, Fuhr and Faber up on the front once again, just keeping that pace ticking along nicely as they go in underneath the archway once again.
Yeah, so they've just come through the archway of segment 6, and that is the first of our 2 5k segments in this race today. And you'll see that Angie Parra has just crossed the line with the fastest time for strong women in 8 minutes and 52 seconds, followed by Bardaskaya for Toyota Cryo Team, Brogan for Spartan Obstacles, Sinelli for Tri Women in 4th, and Gonzalez Ruiz in 5th at Las Colombianas. But I think what's really more telling there, Matt, is the average watts per kilo over that 5k segment, because riders were really taking that comfortably. Look at those numbers: 2.9, 2.8, 2.7, 3.0. Now, for our first cat riders, that is much more of a general social ride pace, and they really haven't lit the fire on this race yet.
And what sort of watts per kilo would you expect to see from our first category riders if they were just sitting at pace?
Our first category riders are more than comfortable of putting in watts per kilo of 4, 4.5, and I would expect to see them on the climb putting in those numbers.
And on some of those steeper sections, of course, we start to see double digits from some of the riders. Not all of them by any means. Depends on what sort of a rider they are, whether they can sprint or whether they are a steady climbing pace rider. But at the moment, as Emma was just saying, we're just looking through the numbers on the right-hand side of our screen. Those numbers currently rolling around about the 3.5 watts per kilo. So sitting down, and when you're talking about the difference between sort of 3.5 and 4.5, 1 watt per kilo in 4 is actually a substantial amount to be sat back, but it only needs to be below your limit. So there's a phrase that's used by a lot of people, a measurement, a metric, which is the functional threshold power, the FTP power. And that is often a marker that's used for competition. Now, at MyWhoosh, we have a real raft of metrics that we use to measure riders and see who is stronger, who isn't. It's not just about what is a theoretical what can you hold for 1 hour. It's also about maximum power. It's about sprint speed. It's your 5-second power. It's about how hard our riders are able to ride for a length of time, and how many aggressive attacks they can put in. So that category that they're in is dependent on much more than an FTP, but that FTP is quite telling. If you drop below it, you generally recover. And if you go above it, you are generally starting to eat into the amount of time you can sit there. And some riders can stay there longer than others.
Yeah, some riders can. I know some riders who can sit pretty much within 1 or 2 heartbeats of their threshold heart rate for hours, and they know the second that they move 1, 2, 3 beats higher, they go into the red, and they're not going to last very long. But they are trained, and they know exactly what they can put out for exactly how long. And it'll be the same for our riders today on the screen in front of us. And they will know exactly what they can do, exactly what their limits are, and exactly what skill set they've got as to whether they are capable of putting out 12 or 14 watts per kilo in a sprint, or whether their sprint top end is at 11.
And that is definitely true of our first category riders, not so much our second category, and we wouldn't expect it really from our third category. They're jumping on and having a go, and that's the beauty of the platform and the racing. There's something for everybody, whether you are a top level rider who can sit within 1, 2 beats of your limit, whether you are a top cap rider who can sprint at 5 times your FTP, but you can't hold the power steady for toffee, or whether, of course, you're somebody just jumping on and are totally exploring. And in some ways, when you first jump on, it's really it's great fun because you're exploring what you can do. You're exploring the routes, and there are so many routes on MyWhoosh, so many different worlds with this very rich and vibrant backgrounds around the worlds and the scenarios that you ride through. Absolutely great, and that helps keeps you inspired and moving sometimes when maybe you're not quite on that top end form, and you can sit there and push along. And it's great to explore. You get to see lots of sites you maybe haven't seen in real life, and literally everywhere. We've talked about the scenery before, everything from the World Heritage sites of Al Ain, right the way up through to the Jebel Hafid, right the way into the multi-story skyscrapers and the amazing architecture that we see in Abu Dhabi and Dubai on the Emirates.
Yeah, and as we've got the split screen in front of us, we've been drawn back to that Category 3 front race, and there's still 9 riders in that group, mixed with a couple of the Category 2 riders in there as well. But our Category 3 competition today looks to me as though it's going to be just as competitive as our Category 1 and Category 2.
It does, doesn't it? I'm just watching this thinking the Category 3 riders with those Category 2 riders are going to be taking heart from that. They are going to be thinking, do you know what? I'm doing all right here. I'm in with a Category 2 group. I'm holding in here. And we can just see this here as they move on. Oh, it certainly looks to me like those riders are riding smoothly and keeping it nicely together.
Yeah, and it's great to see, isn't it? It's like you said there, Matt, earlier on, with the Category 1, Category 2 and Category 3 opportunities on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. There really is something for everybody. And also there's progression for everybody, because riders are able to move between the categories, and it's like we've mentioned earlier, it's not just an individual activity, it's also a club activity. So as you are in a team, it's very much a social activity between the riders as well, working out what they're going to do week in, week out, and the tactics of the team, and creating communities amongst these riders as well.
Yeah, and just seeing Erin Poulton on the way through. Erin starting to become a regular on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. Good to see Erin in action here. At the moment, Alessia and Tico in the leading group here. Alessia, another of our riders, becoming becoming a regular here on MyWhoosh, and good to see that she sat in with this group, not having any problems at all. The Tri-Women squad, very, very strong. So, and Tico on the right-hand side, just in with Erin Poulton on your left-hand side, and certainly looks to me like these riders are really, really good at just sitting in this pack. And this course really is testing the other skills that these riders have, testing the skills that they need sitting in a group. And that is as important as being able to climb.
It is, though, talking about the ability to be able to climb at 28.7k at the front of this race now, it's not far off before they hit the bottom of that climb, and they're about to come into our final 5k segment, which finishes 1.2k to the finish. So this is a massive pack going in from the front, as well as a massive pack still for our Category 3 riders. And looking at that course overview that's just popped up on your screen, you'll see that final climb starts at 29.6k, and we are not far off there. I'm really fascinated as to how this race is going to play out up that final climb.
Indeed, and I think for me that section, when you come into it, it is slightly rising on the way into the 29.9k. You've got that roller coaster, but then it just almost rockets upwards, doesn't it? And that is when it's going to get tough. At the moment, we're on 5k, sorry, 4.5 percent, just dropping down a little bit at the moment. One of those steps on that run in at 29.2k. So just a little bit steppy on the run in towards the final climb. But look at this. I think we're now about to see our riders think, right, enough's enough. The pace is up 4 watts per kilo, almost exclusively across the board here. And if you look at your map, we're just starting to see the first of our green dots detach from the bunch. Expect this to be the way that the racing runs. So we're now coming in towards the finale of July here on MyWhoosh, the finale of our women's race series through July on the Sunday Race Club. We've had 4 amazing qualifiers with some great racing and some really varied winners and winning teams. However, now is the time for the teams to prove what they've got, to put everything out there. No tactical riding. They need to now make the numbers count, make the power, the pressure, the pace, the training, those hours spent on the bike come out, because this is key. They've got to be able to push and look at that pack. The front of it's yellow and the back of it's green, and that says everything about this. Interestingly, we've lost Kekkonen, we know we've lost Sanchez, but we have lost Lytton. We've lost Dorothy Gonzalez, both first category riders off the back of this group, and now we are starting to see the battle unfold. Those numbers are winding upwards, aren't they, Emma?
They are, and there's 9 riders in those yellow jerseys there come to the front of that group that I can see on the screen there, and they really have started to put a little bit more power on those pedals to really stretch that group and start to come clear of the Category 2 riders.
And just at the back of that group, in fact, just seeing Francis in there as we see our first proper serious attack now from Van Heuling. We saw her go to 8 watts per kilo. She's sitting at 6 watts per kilo. This is going to destroy that group. It's going to be all hands to the post. They are now having to answer this. And now, but looks like Bjarhead is going to come through. Marlene Bjarhead comes up onto the wheels and past Van Heuling. She doesn't press it home, interestingly. Shuts down the throttles. She went up. That first attack has been answered, but it has done damage behind. Faber Moreno now having to chase hard behind. Almost exclusively first category riders in the front group and second category riders in the chasing group behind, now that we are on the climb. And you can see that gradient 7.5%. It's going to keep kicking all the way to the top of this climb. Remember, we finished this climb at 35k in total, but we do have a dip right into the finish that will make a massive difference. And look at your screen on the left-hand side, right-hand side, Van Heuling, Bjarhead, on the front of this group in the very lead. But the left-hand side of your screen, you can see that our second category riders are now sorting themselves out. Cinelli, Oliveira going through. I think that's going to be Carmona. It is indeed. So Oliveira, Cinelli, and Carmona with a little bit of a gap to Antico, Lizzie and Condera in there, the Reynard in that group, but Cinelli at the moment, the rider, and Eleni is going to have to just now decide to push. She's got Sanchez up the road, so just in front is Faber in the yellow, then there is Sanchez leading, so Jenny Sanchez is going to be our leading rider. Jenny Sanchez has taken a victory before in the second category competition. She's a rider who we know is super strong, but will she be able to take that victory today and really make it hers? Well, not too long till we find out, but it is going to be Sanchez who is the lead secondary category rider. But look at this, the group reforming a little bit here. Remember, this leading category one riders at the moment, they're just on this run across the bridge, but it kicks up very soon afterwards, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and we will see it really start to kick shortly. But across the bridge here, a slight descent, a slight flat bit, a little bit of respite before this hill and climb goes again.
And before we see our first category riders, just a little catch up here is our second category riders as Sanchez catches Chinelli, but you can see Cadera on her way past there. So we are going to have 6 second category riders within fractions of a second of each other, but not as close as our first category riders. Bjarhed leading, Fua in second, Cavedo in third, Van Heuling in fourth, Bauer in fifth. It's going to be Brogan in sixth place, Bardovskaya in seventh place, but Bardovskaya is 9 seconds down on our leading 6 riders. Another big push as they come up here. It's about carrying momentum, but Bjarhed went at 8 watts per kilo, so it's currently at 5.9. And I think one of the things we're seeing is getting this timing right. It's proving tricky today for these riders. They need to kick at the right time. Bjarhed is continuing at 5.6 and behind. Brogan is the rider, I think, who has had to respond hardest there. As she's currently at 9.7 watts per kilo. We just saw from Brogan as she came over the top, and then easing off as she came in through now. And this is about pulling back those attacks. So Brogan at the moment trying to bring back the attacks that keep on coming in. However, there's going to be a limited amount of time she can do that. Van Heuling also attacking, and now it is Bauer's turn on the front. So this race, a constantly evolving washing machine of riders. There's been circling around. They've been debating what to do now. I think the time for debate is over. We're at 31.6k here. Our elite group of leading riders are on the climb, and our riders really do need now to make this count, because we are running out of time for them to secure that prize money, not just for themselves, but for their race teams here on MyWhoosh. So time is critical. It is running out for the riders. Fua in here, Van Heuling, Bauer, Bjarhed, Brogan, Cavedo, all looking to take top spot. Bjarhed looks to be in the mix still. And again, another rider who's had a strong kick at the very end of the climb. Now, one of the places it's good to go is going in the tunnels. We have tunnels further up this climb, and when you're in them, it restricts the other rider's view of you if you're up the road. That does make a difference on MyWhoosh, as it would do if you were riding down the little lanes out in a small countryside with big hedgerows. But as these riders come in, next big step coming up. Watch that gradient change from minus 1.7, and we're already up and over 7 now, 8% as they come up over this step. It's going to ease again, but you can see the dip and rise is coming up. Keeping the pace right, keeping that momentum rolling is key. So at the moment, those initial kicks and attacks have not paid dividends by letting people go clear at the front, but what they have done is distance riders off the back.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I'm watching heart rates. So we are roughly 25 to 30 beats a minute higher in this pack, leading in the Category 1 race now than they were 5K ago. So this race has really opened up the throttle, and they're really working hard for this. But there's 6 riders in that front pack. So this race really isn't over yet, and there's not much further to go.
There isn't indeed. We are now at just the 2.5k from our race finish here today. Don't forget, of course, this segment on the climb, which will give us a real indicator of who is climbing well and what those time gaps are back. Well, that finishes as we are on our run in with 1.2k to go. But at the moment, with just over 2k left on this climb, Van Heuling on the front of 5.7 watts per kilo. Bjarhed coming in just under 6. Bauer just under 6. Fua 5.5 watts per kilo. Cavedo at 5.5. And Brogan may well be the next rider in trouble, but she is responding here behind them. You can see the riders are yo-yoing about, but Kimona Bardovskaya, Oliveira Sanchez, that second category race is going to follow in quite hard on the heels of our first category riders at the moment. So here we go. Jojo Bauer on the front of the race with the white cap here. Jojo Bauer goes on to the climb, but Bjarhed goes through. They carried so much momentum there, rolling in and through. And Fua, I think, has got the measure of this score. She rolled almost over the top of the climb there, but Bjarhed, Van Heuling and Fua, the top of 3. Bauer, Cavedo, Brogan, all in the mix, but Bjarhed is going to go up onto our next step and into the tunnels first. So Marlene Bjarhed going to come through. in front of Jojo Bauer in second, Fua in third, but they are all exchanging positions faster than I can run through the 1 to 6 here. So as we come in, we are now approaching 33.5 kilometers, at which point we are only going to have a K and a half, 1,500 meters get into that finish. And at the moment, nobody looks to be in too much trouble. Nobody's been able to deliver the knockout blow as they come in up this climb. We've got another step inside the tunnel coming up. And these riders, I think the nearest chaser to him is going to be our second category leader. This is Carmona, and Carmona is about 400 meters back on the leaders, 300 meters back, in fact, on the leaders, but she's not having it her own way. Sanchez going around the outside, so a real battle here, Emma, in our first and second categories.
Yeah, and it was great to see, wasn't it? It's not just Sanchez going around the other side, but I saw at least 3 riders at the very, very front of that Category 2 race. So I think all the way down back through the racetrack, we've got some amazing racing going on, not just in a Category 1 battle, but a Category 2 battle and a Category 3 battle today, Matt.
Well, looking at Karun Quevedo now, Quevedo comes to the front of Rudder. We have not seen do too much on the front yet. But it's, as you said earlier, it's often the smartest rider rather than the fastest rider. And we've seen a little bit of an ease back here. Now we go underneath the banner at the end. This is at the top of the segment. So as our riders go in through the segment there, we now are on 1.2K to go. And the final race run in has begun. There are top 6 riders there on your screen. Emma, anybody stand out here? Anybody just being very careful?
Yeah, so it's really interesting when we look through 1, 2, 3, all from the same team, Spartan Obstacles, of Van Houweling, Quevedo and Brogan. Jojo Bauer in 4th, Marlene Bjarhed in 5th, but Fua in 6th. Really interestingly, 2 seconds slower through that segment than the riders she's with, and only 4.4 watts per kilo. So a much steadier segment for the 4th Spartan Obstacles rider in that group.
Well, here we go. We said it was going to be about team work as well. Can they bring this home? That is going to be key here. Remember, Brogan, Fua, Van Houweling and Quevedo, 4 riders in their team taking the start line, 4 of their riders in the top 6. But can they add to what should be a team win with an individual win? Quevedo goes at 6.4 watts per kilo. The nearest rider to her is Van Houweling, and I think she's just letting that go a little bit. Bjarhed has to respond to this. She does teammate up there. Neither does Jojo Bauer. They've been left to do it themselves. We're on just over 500 meters to go, and Quevedo is now caught and pulled back down again. Who has got the pace to go over the top? It's Jojo Bauer who puts in the initial move, but look at the response from Quevedo. She's not going to let Bauer go that easily. And now we are starting to see riders in trouble behind. Van Houweling is coming charging from behind here. She carries it into the bush. She carries that pace. Bjarhed sitting there with the blue cap on. The Swedish rider has got the yellow straight down the middle of the cap. They're going to come around this right-hand turn. It's going to dip down. We're on about 400 meters to go now, 350 meters. It takes down 300 meters. They're going to dip down. It's going to be a slight rise. The yellow gantry is the finish line. Who is going to take this? Are we going to see a whitewash of places by the obstacles team? Are they going to put a roadblock and stop anybody getting past the Kiki's on and Quevedo? That's timing. She comes in and through. Then it's going to be Brogan, I think, and Van Houweling as well as Bauer. And what a ride on the way through Spartan Obstacles with first and second places with Brogan and Quevedo. Jojo Bauer able to break the top 5 lockouts there by Spartan Obstacles by coming in for the Las Colombianas team in 3rd place. And the Toyota Creo RDT rider, Marlene Bjarhed, coming through into 6th place. What a finish, Emma. That big smile on your face watching that.
I'm smiling because what a fantastic example of how to race the downhill section before that uphill finish.
And one rider who's on it now. This is going to be our leader who's going to come in and look to make this a win in the second category race. And a reminder, 7th in the race overall is going to be the rider who's going to take this. So Olivieri is going to come through. Silvia Olivieri comes up to the line. She's going to take away big money here and winning the race in that second category, the Tri-Women's squad. We said at the start they were strong. We said they were the riders potentially to beat in the team competition. Now they've got Olivieri through Antico and Chinelli were in those chasing group. We've got our second rider in, that is Lutz Kimona. So Lutz Kimona following Olivieri coming over the line. They are 7th and 8th places at the moment. Now Tri Women get their second rider home. Who is going to be their next rider in? It's Sanchez from the Strong Women's squad. This is going to be really close in our second category of racing, because I know Chinelli is up the road at the moment. So it certainly looks to me like they are absolutely shifting here. So Sanchez comes through for the strong women's squad, and it's certainly looking like it is going to be Spartan Obstacles who take the win in the team competition. Interesting to see Toyota Crowd putting another rider in to the finish there as they come in. So they're going to be in the run for the second team. Leslie Ann Cadera on her way up to the line here. She's chasing Sanchez home. She is going to be the rider who's going to come home. I think it's going to be in 5th place as she comes in through the line there for the Slam Bike Shop team. This is really, really interesting because the team competition is still open. Tri Women with 2 riders in and over the line, but Strong Women with a rider in. We've got the Team Fitness 10 with a rider in that second category competition. Our first category riders, so Spartan Obstacles, they put all 4 riders in the top 5, and that is amazing here. Toyota Cryo with 2 riders in the top 12, in 11th and in 6th place there. Will the Toyota Cryo squad be able to take home some of that prize money? I suspect they will, because they're looking good at the moment as they come through. So don't forget, our riders on the way in and coming in and through, and we've just got that confirmed by the look of it. The Tri Women come in. They should be taking away the top 3 riders home, for them being the leading team back and in. So, Emma, some great racing in our final here today in the men's and in the women's race. The women's race, Spartan Obstacles, team of the day, surely.
Yeah, that final group leading in that Cat 1 race, they left it and they left it. They sat and they sat, and then they gave us an amazing finish where it was just so hard to call with that last group of 5 riders coming into that finish in that last 500 metres. Fabulous racing and amazing racing from our Category 2 riders. What astounding performances from them, packing in not far behind that lead Category 1 group.
Indeed, and maybe individual performance, not a race winner, but our Category 2 winner takes sixth place in the race overall. So don't forget, you can catch up with all of the race results. Go on to www.mywhoosh.com. Click on those results. They will be unofficial and then verified. They will become official. Don't forget, we start the cycle all over again, and it is everybody intended, with our first qualifying race next Sunday of our August run. And remember, that will be rounded out by another prize money final. All of the coverage on our YouTube channel. Make sure that you tick that subscribe button. Make sure you give us a like on social media. MyWhoosh on Instagram, on Facebook, my_whoosh on Twitter. Don't forget, you can follow Emma. Where can we find you online?
You can find me at Biking Emma.
And you can find me, Matt Fixpain. It's been an absolute pleasure putting words to some fantastic action today. Thank you to all of our riders, to the team behind the scenes at MyWhoosh, and for you for watching. From everybody at MyWhoosh, a shufkum ala kia. We'll see you again soon next time.